Ladies and gentlemen, and morning to Scott and to Christina Wasson. Uh, as scheduled, we'll begin with the introduction of the guest and speakers and director and registrar of CIT Kokrajhar. So, first of all, I would like to introduce director of CIT Kokrajhar, Professor Devkumar Chakraborty. Professor Devkumar Chakraborty is the professor at IIT Guwahati in the Department of Design, and he has been serving at CIT Kokrajhar since 5 years. And next to him, I would like to introduce the registrar of CIT Kokrajhar is Chaitali Brahma. Madam Registrar has inspired and suggested to organize this webinar. So I thank you, ma'am, for your inspiration. Now, let me take an opportunity to introduce our speakers. But before that, let me say a little bit about the topic of this webinar. As we all know that the present crisis, the pandemic crisis, it has taken up everything in our, including, but before that, let me say academia, a little bit about the topic. So please turn off your audio, dear participants. The present crisis, the pandemic crisis, it has taken up everything in our. So, as far as research in linguistics and culture is concerned, we have seen that it has created a challenge in terms of field linguistics and field work. So, and we also know that the traditional conferences, workshops, everything is halted. This is why, as presently, there is a trend going on of organizing webinars or online workshop and seminars. So we have also attempted to organize this webinar. So to discuss the practical issues related to this topic, we have invited our speakers. First of all, let me introduce Professor Scott Delancey. Professor Scott Delancey is a Professor Emeritus of Linguistics at University of Oregon, United States. He's a specialist in Tibeto-Burman languages, especially of Northeast India, Myanmar, and Nepal, and has also published extensively on various topics in linguistic typology, including ergative syntax, evidentiality, and myotivity, and verb agreement. For the past 15 years, he has been working in Northeast India with local linguists to promote documentation and description of the 150 plus tribal languages of the region. He has lectured and conducted workshops in language description at Guwahati University, Tezpur University, Nehu, Manipur University, Mizoram University, Assam University, and Rajiv Gandhi University. He's currently working on a grammar of Bodo language together with linguists at Guwahati University and CIT Kokrajhar. Next to Professor Scott, we have Professor Christina Wasson, Mizoram University, Assam University, and Rajiv. Please, somebody is turning on his or her audio, turn off. She is a professor of anthropology from University of North Texas, United States. Her work is motivated by a passion for 3 C's: communication, collaboration, and community building in both face-to-face and online context. Professor Christina was trained as a linguistic anthropologist. She works for design anthropology. She was a founding member of the ethnographic praxis in industry conferences steering committee. Much of her work has been in partnership with the private sector, and she has started to collaborate with indigenous communities too. Presently, she has been working with Bodos and Dimasa's in Assam for archiving language and culture. So thank you, ma'am, for accepting the invitation as a speaker. And we are looking forward to listening from you. Next to ma'am, we have Professor Anil Boro. Professor Anil Boro is a very well-known figure as an academician in Assam. Was born near Manas National Park in Baksa district of BTAD, Assam. He did his post-graduation, MPhil and PhD from Guwahati University. Presently, he's the professor and head folklore research department and director in charge of Center for Performing Arts at Guwahati University. He has published more than 20 books on folklore and Bodo literature, namely poetry, travelogue, book of criticism, and some books in English. He has edited many books for Sahitya Academy, including Kok Borok Lok Songit, or Kobita into Bodo. He has edited journals on folklore and Bodo literature online. Moreover, he is actively engaged as executive member and convener Bodo Advisory Board, Bodo Sahitya Academy. He is a member of Board of Students, Nehu and Nagaland University, and he is an active scholar in folklore researches from Assam, participating and presenting papers in many national and international conferences in India and abroad. So this is the brief introduction of our speakers and director and registrar of CID Kokrajhar. Now, may I request our respected director, Professor Dev Kumar Chakraborty sir, to turn on his audio and video and do welcome address. So please.
Good evening to everybody. Now the issue of during or post-COVID crisis and the maintaining the individual community identity for global exposure. What I feel that this is the main issue in today's context, and I think the discussion with this immense importance. I welcome the speakers, Professor Skoll, Professor Christina, and Professor Anil Boro. I think linguistic, the language and culture enjoys mutual exchange towards enriching all of us. But now, as we are not able to meet each other, so this webinar platform, it brings all of us together to discuss this issue. And I congratulate Sri Bihum Brahmo to convene this meeting, this webinar, and also to register CIT Kokrajhar, Mr. Chaitali Brahmo, to extend all the facilities for this. And I welcome all the participants here, those who will be here, and after this meeting, then I think this will create a good platform for collaboration. So with this, I welcome everybody in today's webinar. Thank you very much. Yes, Bihum, it is over. Hello, Bihum, is there any problem?
Hello, sir. Thank you. Thank you. We could hear you very nicely. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I welcome everybody. Yeah.
Bye. So now may I request Christina to turn on her audio and video?
My video is turned on, and can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. can you turn on your video too? Yes, can see you.
It is turned on, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you like me to go ahead and present?
Please go ahead, Christina.
Okay, slides. So let me start those.
Okay.
Let's see. So it looks like someone, Ratul Uzier, is presenting. Oh, there. Okay, now I can. Oh. Sorry. Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
But we see it.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me know. You see it now? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So, so I want to thank you for the invitation to participate in this cutting edge international webinar. I so appreciate having gotten to know Professor Bihung Brahma on my visits to India. And I feel very happy and honored to be working with the Center for Linguistics and Cultural Studies at CIT Kokrajhar. This center is doing, I think, very important work for the Bodo people. I will try not to speak too fast. I know I have a strange American accent, which may be hard for you to understand. And also, of course, there may be issues with the internet connection. So I will talk about the challenge of doing anthropology research during and after COVID. So at a basic level, what COVID means for researchers is that we have to stay home. So we can only interact virtually with email or WhatsApp or Google Meet or whatever. And even before COVID, since I
Hello, Christina.
Unmute
I
yourself.
think.
Hello, presenter. Unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, you're audible, Christina. We can hear you. You can proceed.
Okay. Good. When did you hear any of what I said, or should I start from the beginning?
I think you should start from the beginning. Like the link was not working before. I think now you're audible now.
I see. Okay. See, bring the screen back. So, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can. We can.
Good. Okay. So I want to start by thanking you for the invitation to participate in this cutting edge international webinar. I so appreciate having gotten to know Professor Bihung Brahma on my visits to India. To be working with the Center for Linguistics and Cultural Studies at CIT Kokrajhar. I think the center is doing some very important work for the Bodo people. I will try not to speak too fast. I know I have a strange American accent, which may be hard for you to understand. And then also there may not be such a good internet connection. So I will talk about the challenges of doing anthropology research during and after COVID. So what COVID, can you still hear me, by the way?
Yes. Yes, Christina. Continue.
Good, okay. What COVID means for researchers at the most basic level is that we have to stay home. So we can only interact virtually with email or WhatsApp or Google Meet or whatever. In my case, COVID, since I am based in the United States and I'm collaborating with people in India, some of our collaboration had to be through virtual communication methods. And the map on the screen shows you how far apart Denton, Texas, where I'm located, and Kokrajhar are. So as it happens, I have actually been doing research on virtual communication for many years. I'm a linguistic anthropologist, and I'm interested in the communication practices of different groups of people. And so on the screen, you can see a list of some of the studies that I've conducted over the last 20 years on virtual communication and collaboration. So it includes topics like corporate meetings, cell phone use, social TV. And I've also done work on virtual pedagogy. So in the educational context, to lead the development of my university's online master's program in anthropology, which was the first online master's program in anthropology in the United States. So with the rise of COVID, anthropologists have been thinking a lot research online. Giving you here 2 links, some very large and thorough sets of resources that have been collected. The picture on the right shows you just a few of the topics that are addressed in these resources, like using photo voice, diaries, reviews, things like that. And I would be happy, excuse me, happy to share my slides with you if you would like to get these links. I'm going to focus on an example of my own research. So for the last few years, I and my research assistants have been collaborating with Bodo scholars as well as members of several other indigenous communities in Assam and Manipur. And I'll use this case study to show how this kind of long distance collaboration weaves together face-to-face activities and virtual activities. So face-to-face visits are invaluable for getting to know people, for developing ideas and plans through longer conversations with them, and for allowing me and my RAs to be exposed to Bodo culture. Virtual communication is harder, workable. So the focus of our collaboration is on archives for Indigenous communities. So I'm talking about online archives. Of course, in earlier times, archives were physical buildings, brick and mortar buildings with actual like paper and artifacts in them. Now, we are more focused on online storage of information. Everybody reaches for their cell phone way to get information. So, so that kind of has come together, the development of the internet has come together with concerns that many or maybe all Indigenous communities around the world have, that they are starting to lose their, or aspects of their language and culture due to modernization and globalization and other kind of pressures to adopt like other languages and cultures. So archives can be one tool to help communities preserve and revitalize their language and culture. So the research started with a face-to-face trip to Northeast India. I went along with 2 research assistants, and on that trip we visited 4 communities, the Bodo and the Dimasa in Assam, and the Lamkang and Anal in Manipur. And our research questions were very exploratory and basic at that time. They included things like whether community members thought an archive might be useful to their communities, and if there was interest, whether they would like to initiate long-term collaborative relationships. And it turned out that there was interest. And here are some of the common things that people told us in our interviews. So one was that They really wanted language and culture materials about their communities to be available online. And they said that at that point, there really wasn't that much information that was available online. Like there could be a lot more. A lot of people also expressed concern about the loss of traditional knowledge due to the passing of older generations. And then a third kind of comment that we heard was that many people felt that their communities were not very well known around the world, and that maybe the archive could be a way to raise their visibility. And they had many ideas of what they might like to see in an archive, including dictionaries, histories, verbal art, animations for children, publications of literature societies, and also maybe the archive could become
Excuse
sort of
me,
a hub
Christina.
for, yes,
Christina.
yes.
Some are saying
Yes.
that your slides are not seen, but I can see that.
Oh.
But others are kind of writing to me, they're not being able to see the slides. Yeah. Anyway, you carry on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I sent you the slide, so it's fine if you would like
Anyway,
to put those.
we can see some of us. We can see
Yeah.
that. No issues. You can continue.
Okay. So then after that trip, we shifted to a virtual mode of collaboration during 2019. So during 2019, we mainly communicated by email and WhatsApp to start to plan this new community-based archive. The Bodo and Dimasa communities were ready to move forward most quickly. So we worked most closely with them. And a first decision that we made was to use Mukurtu, listing platform designed for Indigenous cultural and linguistic heritage. It has many advantages. It's free and open source. It's already used by many tribes in North America and Australia. Community-based. So the way it's set up, decisions are made by community members and not by outside groups. So in fall of 2019, my research assistant and I developed a prototype of an archive. So using Mukurtu, we started to set it up for a Bodo and Dimasa Indigenous Heritage platform. You can see a screenshot there of the home page if you can see my slides. So this is just a starting point.
Yeah, we can see that.
Oh, good. Good. So then in 2020, into a face-to-face mode of collaboration, in February, my research assistant, Shannon Cronin, and I visited both the Bodo and Dimasa communities. In Bodoland, we were invited to stay at CIT Kokrajhar, and we were invited to give this workshop on community-based archiving. Other activities that we engaged in while we were there was that we continued to explore future directions for the archive with the Center for Linguistics and Cultural Studies at CIT Kokrajhar. We continued to meet more people and get to know more people who might be interested in participating in the project. Training in how to be a curator, and you can see in the picture, Shannon is working with Prafula Basmatri there. And we continued, Shannon and I continued to learn about Bodo culture. After this trip, our collaboration shifted back to a virtual long distance mode. And this is also where COVID started. So we had to be long distance we had to be virtual for many reasons. So this summer, I taught a new course that I just invented called Analysis and the Segue to Design. It's an advanced level master's course. And as a project, I had the students analyze the field notes from the trip that Shannon and I made in February, and then develop recommendations based on that trip. They are working on the final report. It will be ready in about a week. And I will, if you contact me, I will be happy to share it with you. Give you a preview. Here is a picture of a model that we have developed. So there's, by the way, there's some loud noise that I'm hearing. Maybe someone needs to be on mute. I don't know. So here's a preview of the model that we developed. We came to think of the archive as having a core of technology, meaning like the Mokritu platform and the content that would be uploaded to that platform, things like videos, photos, literature, 3 social layers around. So first, there's the curators and managers who manage the archive. Then there are a variety of different user groups, and they could be doing 2 kinds of things. They could be accessing materials that are in the archive, adding more materials to the archive, so creating and uploading materials. There's a circle about how the archive sits in the broader community, and that relates to things like the community's pride in their heritage and wish to continue it and continue knowledge about it. It also has to do with organizations that can support the archive in various ways. So there will be more than this in the report, but that's just a preview of students are thinking about this. And then as we move forward, hopefully eventually we will get to a post-COVID place. But meanwhile, in terms of our distance collaboration, we will continue to work on customizing the archive and putting content on it. Eventually, hopefully, when we are allowed to, we can also make further visits to India for more intensive planning and mutual learning. So that is what I have to say. And if you want it, here is my email address and my website address for more information, for the opportunity to present to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful lecture and experience which you have shared from your last visit in India. And I'm very thankful that you have been talking to and discussing with your students regarding your last trip. And we have a WhatsApp group, I know that. So we are connected to your students too. So anyway, discussions will be there after the talk, after Scott's talk. So get ready. Thank you, ma'am.
Great, thank you.
Now, our next speaker will be Professor Anil Boro, sir. So I request sir to turn on his audio and video.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
All right. So
could you show my slides?
just a minute, sir.
So
Wait, sir. Just a minute. Okay.
could I start? Yeah.
Yeah, go on, sir. You can start.
Yeah. Yeah. Good evening. Yeah. Good evening, the speakers and the participants. I'll be speaking on the challenges of field research in folklore and folk culture during COVID pandemic. I have come here with some slides that will make the situation easy for the new students and researchers to understand. Actually, this is completely a new situation where we are in. Nowadays, we are everywhere we are speaking in terms of e-resource, we are speaking in terms of online and digital resources for learning, for all academic and research purposes. And here today, we are going to discuss how we can, we have to shift to e-resources. We have to shift to the socially distanced fieldwork, the remote fieldwork, especially in anthropology, in folklore research, and in language. And I'll be speaking in terms of the remote collection and socially distanced fieldwork and interviewing in folklore. So this is the pandemic situation where the social distance and lockdown is the order of the day. All the educational institutions are closed. All the research institutions are closed. And in India, it started a bit late. It started maybe in the last week of March, the lockdown started in the last week of March, maybe. And since then, all the education institutions are closed, and in some areas like Mumbai, the education institutions are closed even before that. And since then, we are expecting when our educational institutions will reopen, when our research activities will start again, because after the outbreak of corona pandemic and after the declaration of lockdown, all the academic activities, all the research activities have been completely shut off. So now we are looking for the new ways of field study, field collection. We are looking for new ways of academic activities, how we can keep on our academic activities, how we can keep on our research activities. The PowerPoint is not on, so I have to carry on. This is the pandemic situation. The challenges, we have the lockdown, we have those social distance and administrative restrictions in the movement of people from place to place, then closure of educational and research institutions, and closure of all community and public celebrations. This is more important. All the festivities, all the public celebrations are completely closed. Yeah. So not only in India, all over the world, and if you look at the different websites of the folklore institutes and universities of America, you'll see the long list of disruption and cancellation of different activities, folklore activities, disruption of folk arts activities, different celebrations. And in India also we see, in Assam, especially in Assam, the cancellation of public celebration of the Bihu, then different functions. Till today we have seen the cancellation of these different public celebrations. Then how can our field workers. How can our researchers go to the field and collect data when the actual celebrations are not there? How we can collect field data in the absence of the celebrations, in the absence of the public celebrations and community festivals? So I have brought some experiences from the American institutions, folklore institutions, American folklore universities, where the folklore institutes and folklore, the different universities have responded to this pandemic situation. How the institutes have created some funds, created some bodies, created some funds for supporting the artisans, affected artisans, affected artists, the affected people in India also. We are not much organized in that way, but we also acted in that way. Our government and our people also acted in that way to support the affected artisans, affected performers who could not perform during the days of the pandemic. The folk artists, the performers, the Julia performers, and different puppeteers and different performers who could not perform, and they're sitting completely idle at home. And they are not in a position to live their lives. So we need to support them economically. We need to support them by providing some assistance. So different organizations, different institutions in America took the lead. And here in India, we don't see organized effort, but anyway, the government and different organizations took the role, the positive role. There in America, there were 8 funds for traditional artists and performers. Here we don't have any organized efforts, but till then, our government came forward, our people came forward to support the artisans in crisis during the period of the pandemic. And now we come to the field work. During this pandemic, we have no other options left for the folklorists and field characters. We have no options left other than going to the online resources, other than going to the digital resources. The earlier speaker also mentioned. Then we have no other options than to keep in contact with our collaborators, our informants in the field, with the help of the telephone and via email. And the next option is remote and socially distanced collecting. This is the most important, remote and socially distanced collecting. And then next could be concentrating more on home, concentrating more on library and desk work. If we have already some collected material, some collected video, collected audio, collected field data, then we can keep on working on the decks. It can be possible only when we have already started some amount of our fieldwork already. And I have given you a list of some e-resources to which our young folklorists can go for collecting. And then what is remote collecting and socially distanced collecting? This is very, very important at this point. Remote collecting and socially distanced collecting. Here, online and e-resource helps a lot because we have to start from there. It's theoretical and conceptual frameworks. We have to go to the digital and online sources to have some conceptual framework for our research work, academic work. And then we must rely on the phone and video conferencing. Phone and video conferencing is one of the most important methods of exchange of idea and exchange of data and information from the field during this corona pandemic. And next is collecting data from the social media sites. When we cannot go to the actual field, we have to collect data, social media like Facebook, Twitter, the YouTube, and blogs, different blogs. And another way I have seen is we can engage some collector. We can engage some native collector who resides in our field area, who is very close to us. We can engage him. We can make the context. We can make the collection. We can who can help in all the collection and all the interviews. And how to proceed in this socially distanced fieldwork and interview. Socially distanced fieldwork and interviewing in this kind of field collection and interviewing, the relations between people to people, relations between the collector and the collaborator, relation between the collector and the respondents is disrupted. And the opportunity to learn through interview and personal interview and document folklore data is very low. But in this situation, we can solve the problem by taking the shift from physical world of unmasked faces, gestures, and shapes and hugs, to distance collecting from telephone. Telephone is the most important equipment. Distance collecting through telephone, web-based video communication, and email. And of course, there can be a substitute for physical participation out in the field, but the human beings as creative tool users can connect and find co-presence using whatever means by looking each other across the Skype screen. The Skype has been the most important tool that has been used for many years. Now there is so many new techniques have come up, and now we are in the virtual world. We are face to face with the virtual world. The digital technology for participant observation and interview, and collectors like Patrick Gray have shown the way, and who has said, virtual presence allows me to be there. It is a virtual presence that allows me to be there, if not physically, perhaps temporarily. And some may say, some critics may say that this is not the real kind of field work, and this is not the real, and it is distance collecting. So like streaming platform, this is distance collecting from live streaming platforms. Some people may say this is not reliable, but this is the only way now. And collectors like researchers like Jonathan Skinner, who has worked in the field and who was conducting traditional ethnographic fieldwork on the island of Montserrat in 95 had to shift its gears when volcano erupted all of a sudden, and he had to go for this new method of field collection, the remote field collection, by having resort to the new technology. So he says that field is the site and field is the flow. So we have to look for the new methods. We have to look for the substitutes. And during this time of the pandemic, the e-resources will definitely do our support from the telephone and e-communication will definitely work. But along with this, we have to work on already collected data. We can be busy in our library and desk work, reading and editing, checking and cross-checking data. We can be busy with our computer lab work, reading and rechecking the data. We can be busy with our draft chapters, editing, checking and cross-checking. And we can be busy with our field notes and field diaries, reading with pleasure to refresh field memory so that some left out points come in. And during this time, we can keep communicating with our collaborators in the field and keep our context fresh. Yeah, there are lots of criticisms for this socially distanced field work. In this shift from physical world of field collecting, field collection and interview, there is loss of intimacy. In this kind of collections in socially distanced, in this socially distanced field collection and interview, we cannot maintain close interaction with the collaborator, close interaction with our respondents in the field, because this is created by this new situation, and there is complete absence of close touch with the people, the collaborator in the field, of being togetherness. And that is why some anthropologists may say that this is not the real field work. But we are really helpless in this new situation. And these resources that are collected for this kind of socially distanced field work are really helpful for our researches in anthropology, for our researches in folklore, for our researches in language. So in this research, there is one method that is mostly talked about, that is Emotive method called KT. It is computer-assisted interview. Computer-assisted telephonic interview. It is a method of telephonic interview which is assisted by the computer. This is not a very simple kind of interview. This is an computer-generated, automation-generated kind of interview, and this may be a kind of great help for remote collecting, maybe of great help for socially distanced interview, because it enables even discussion, even interaction between interviewers, researcher, and respondent and collaborator. It makes it easy for the respondent and collaborator to understand the context and nature of question, enables the phone in interview sessions, which is as good as the face-to-face interview. Here, our field partner, collaborator, who lives in remote rural area with limited resource to internet, limited resource to Wi-Fi, may easily help us by providing data, providing interview. So this has proved to be very important method. But there are some ways in which this kind of technique has to be used. This is phone interview requires stamina, and there may be interruption of network. We should be very, very cautious and aware of this. And interview time should not be very long, and we should take prior permission from the respondent, and we should use some videos for some key concepts, and we should have prior practice session. And anyway, this help us in working from home. This help us in taking interview from wherever we are. So this is the best option. This is the only alternative. This is the only substitute during the corona time. But corona time or no corona, we have to collect the data. The data, because without collecting the data, we cannot complete our research. But here I would like to conclude with experiences from my own area, experiences from my own folklore research, mostly the experience of my scholars, experience of my students. One experience is the experience of our students, postgraduate students, MPhil students, who have to complete their work within maybe 1 year, maybe 1.5 years, maybe 2 years. So they have just a brief field work. After the examination is over, they have to go to the field, collect some field data, and submit their field report. So because of this outbreak of corona pandemic, all of a sudden, this process has been completely halted. So we have seen that our students were in great problem. So we gave our students some assignments instead of taking them to the field work, because we couldn't take them to the field work. We were compelled to give some assignments, home assignments. We asked them to go to the digital sources, the internet sources, the social media, and to collect folklore data, local folklore data, or maybe national and international folklore data related to the corona pandemic and its impact on the folk life, the Assamese folk life, their community folk life, and to prepare a report on this. So our students collected data, and many of the American universities, many of the American folklore institutes also undertook some projects like this. Some projects, some survey projects. So we engaged our students to collect data like this, and now our students, during the last 2 or 3 months, they have collected data, prepared the report, and completed their assignment, and have almost submitted their report. And I'll give you another example that is from a PhD scholars, because the PhD scholars have 5 or 6 years time to complete their research. But there are some scholars who have already completed 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years, but they could not complete their fieldwork. So what to do? So these scholars had to go for these online and digital resources they had also to go for this webinar and other online resources, and all of our scholars who is doing his field work, doing his research on Assamese folk theatre, Assamese folk drama, for performing arts, he could not complete his field work because of this corona pandemic, and so now he cannot go to the field because the public celebrations are completely off, the dramatic performances are completely off. So the only option is to go for the data that he has already collected, and lucky enough that he has maybe 10 to 12 hours of video collection of the video performance at that dramatic form. So this is the situation where our folklorists have to work, our researchers have to work. I have some slides to show how our folk communities, different ethnic communities, local communities in Assam and different states of India responded to this corona situation, and they responded to the situation, and some new forms of folklore came off. This, which we call corona folklore, which you can corona folklore, and this is very important to understand this critical situation during this critical time. So we are in a very critical time. So in this critical time, our people, our researchers, have to look for these new ways of field collection, new ways for collecting data in the field. So they couldn't go to the field, and that is what they had no alternative but to go for the online sources. They had no other alternative but to go to the digital sources and keeping contact with their collaborators with the help of the phone, email, and the phone is the most important equipment. As I have already said, that it can play a great role in collecting data. It can help in taking interviews with the help of this computer-assisted program. So thank you for giving the opportunity to speak in this most important webinar. And our scholars, our researchers in the field of folklore and cultures will greatly benefit from this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for very nicely explaining your observation and the challenges and solutions to continue our researches in the field of culture during this pandemic crisis, corona crisis. So I hope our participants will be asking some questions towards the end of the event after Professor Scott's talk. So I hope participants will be keeping some notes. So thank you, sir. Once again, thank you for presenting very nicely. Thank you, sir. So now may I request Professor Scott Delancey, our final speaker, to turn on his audio and video and start his presentation. So please. Scott, sir?
Hey, am I here now?
Yeah.
You hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Are we ready to start?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Go ahead.
Good
Sir.
evening, everyone. Normally, when I start a talk, I would say it's so wonderful to see you all, but I don't really see you all except for these little thumbnails down the side of the screen. Nevertheless, it's wonderful to think about you all. I'm delighted to be participating in this webinar. I wish I were there. The plans that we were all talking about when I left Kokrajhar last winter would have meant that I would be there now, which would be very enjoyable. But since we're not, let's do everything over the internet. So our topic today, challenges of linguistic research under the COVID emergency. Maybe let me reframe this a little bit as not necessarily challenges, but opportunities. If you read the news and read people talking about, oh, how are we going to recover from this? There's a lot of talk about, at least in the United States, I don't know about elsewhere, about how this is showing that all of our old ways of doing things and all of our institutions are inadequate, and we should maybe start over and reconceive some things. I want to suggest some ways of reconceptualizing descriptive linguistic research. And what I'm going to be sort of pushing here is the idea of a fully community-based collaborative descriptive linguistics. Historically, linguistics has been kind of a colonial, descriptive linguistics, that is. It's been kind of a colonial enterprise, and we can do better. And maybe the COVID crisis will help to push us a little bit in the right direction. And what I want to advocate here is building up community-based research projects such that the research doesn't stop when the so-called researcher, and in my notes I have quotation marks around that, goes home for whatever purpose. Linguistics in general, especially theoretical linguistics, is one of those sciences where what the specialists are doing is completely inaccessible to the outside world, right? Anyone here who has studied linguistics remembers the first holiday you go home from university and try and explain to your old grandma what it is you're doing, and it doesn't work because she doesn't understand about phrase structure rules and she doesn't care, and so on. But for descriptive linguistics, there's a very strong commonality of interest between the linguist and the community. Let's face it, any language on which we're doing descriptive linguistics now is potentially an endangered language. It's a language which is spoken by a minority community. It's a language where the community themselves have a lot of interest in documentation, in learning about the language. We need to push harder to be working together on this. So the old, what I call the colonial extraction model of fieldwork. This is the model where the colonialist from a colonial country, say for example, me from the United States, show up on some exotic foreign shore, find some local person, extract a great deal of raw material from that person, take it home, process it, and sell it to build myself a career. Exactly the same way that we would, colonialists will exploit another country by taking their teak or their minerals or what have you. And of course, all the wealth in our field wealth is really prestige and career advancement, but that all comes to me because I took all of the data home and worked it. In this model, the local community folks who provide the essential data don't really see a lot of profit at all. There's a kind of a, what would we call this, globalized colonial approach, which we've seen in this century and a bit before, which involves the foreign researcher enlisting some local scholars. So rather than me just working directly with the community, I find some local linguistics students and I let them go and do all of the work and bring it to me. And then I take it home and I build it up and I process it and I publish it. Similar kind of model here, where the intellectual wealth is being concentrated in the developed world. I like to think that in Northeast India, everybody is kind of moving along past a model like this to one in which at least local scholars are actively involved in building their own careers. And we have now so many community people who are coming forward and pushing for community-based projects. I know Michelle Culling is on this meeting, I think. Many of you would know Bangwang Losu or Sikri Tiso or many other people around the Northeast who are doing community-based projects. Well, we all understand that the linguist needs the community people. You can't do linguistic research without people to give you language, okay? And the community really needs the linguist. If the community is at the point where they're trying to develop a writing system, they need somebody to do a phonemic analysis and so on. So in this situation, our interests are very much the same. And once again, to return to my main theme, I'm pushing for a model where the community-based research never stops. And the fact that the academic researcher may be stuck in Guwahati or Delhi or Eugene or wherever is an inconvenience, but where the constant presence of an outside academic researcher is not really an essential component to keep the research going on day by day. All right. In the contemporary world, I feel like most linguistic research projects are still pretty much just one or the other of those. Of course, community-based projects often do ask for help from a linguist. And of course, if you're a linguist and you meet someone in the community who is excited about this work, that's always very exciting. But still, the reason why any particular project is going on is because somebody at a university wanted to write a dissertation. That's usually the answer. Much less often it's because somebody in the community wants to record folk tales or wants to develop educational materials. Really, all of our projects should be all of that, all together. A descriptive documentation project can't really properly succeed unless it is entirely collaborative and taking everyone's needs and interests into consideration. We've been doing a lot of this in Northeast India. I think NEILS, the Northeast India Linguistic Society, the conference we have every 2 years, is a wonderful opportunity to for everybody to develop more collaborative connections and work together more, but there is still work to do. And once again, my main point here today is to suggest that maybe we jump on the opportunity presented to us by the COVID situation to keep building the communicative structures that we need to keep collaborative projects like this going. Okay, we've known for some time now that it's possible to do a certain amount of our research distantly, and I am not going to, I'm 71 years old, I'm not going to sit here and try and tell all you young people about the wonders of technology and what you can do with Facebook and what you can do with Instagram and what you can do with your phone, because you know that better than I do, I hope. And we've seen in a lot of projects in the last 10 years or so, people using this more and more, but it seems inconvenient. And after all, fieldwork is fun, right? If you're an academic researcher, presumably you enjoy the opportunity to go out to the villages and meet folks in the community. If you didn't enjoy that, you probably wouldn't be doing descriptive linguistics anyway, right? And for the community member, if a project brings you to the university, that can be a fun trip as well. And I feel that we haven't pushed the development and the incorporation in our research of remote research behaviors quite enough, because we never really had to. Well, now it's COVID time and we really have to. What I want to say here, if it's one point, in keeping with the theme, challenges, and now I don't have it in front of me, but there's something about for the future. What I want to say is all of the little emergency arrangements that we make, all of everything that we are running around trying to do now in order to keep our research going during a time when nobody can travel, let's not think about these as temporary emergency arrangements to deal with this situation. Let's think about this as the opportunity to build a new model of remote, distributed, worldwide linguistic descriptive research and documentation, such that we can, to some degree, erase the distinctions that we've always made between, say, language description and language documentation, or between an academic language documentation project and a community-based language development project. What's the difference between language description and documentation and language development and revitalization? Everybody kind of needs the same thing. If you're going to, at the community level, develop language teaching materials, you need a good descriptive analysis before you can do that. Both the researcher and the community-based language activist have the same kind of interest in collecting stories and collecting texts and getting folkloric material and so on. And time is running short, and I guess we are going to need some time for conversation. So let me just say one more time.
Sir, please.
What I want.
You can continue. You can continue for another 10-15 minutes.
10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, on the other hand, I don't know if I have 15 minutes left.
Okay. You can
to
at least
talk about.
take 10 minutes at least.
Okay, let me see what I can do.
Yeah, please do that. Yeah.
Right. So our whole vocabulary for talking about linguistic research is a very kind of, returning to my original theme, very kind of colonialist and paternalistic approach. We talk about the researcher and the informant. Okay, so I show up in town. I am the one adding to the store of human knowledge, and my informant is simply a source of data. I think we need new vocabulary to go with new ways of thinking about this. Even when we talk about researcher and informant, again, the point I've been making over and over, there is no research without the informant, right? There is no way to do linguistic research unless somebody can tell you forms from the language. Okay, so this dyad is always a partnership. It's always collaborative research. Even in the old fully colonialist story that we told, what's actually going on was always a collaboration. And if you look at the work of the old classic linguists, Boas, Maspero, and those folks, they absolutely were working together with and collaborating with their local people. I'd like to see us talk instead about, say, the academic partner and the community partner, or partners, in any descriptive linguistic research. And of course, when partners are working together, everybody has to benefit. And in fact, when you form a partnership, one of the things that you do at the very beginning is to sit down and work out how everybody is going to benefit, what everybody is going to contribute to the partnership, and what everybody is going to take away. From now on, this is the only way that anyone should, or really that we can, do descriptive linguistic research. Okay. Coming to our current COVID-affected situation, if the linguist can't go to the community, if the academic partner can't show up, well, then the community partners are going to have to take on the load. Now, you would ask yourself, why would they do that? And the answer is, you take on the load if you're getting some benefit out of it. So what is the community getting? If I am talking to you, the academic partner here, what is your community getting out of your project that would make them eager to keep working at it while you're not around? Right? If you don't have an obvious answer to that, you might start thinking about it, because your project should have a component like that. And if it doesn't, you need to be thinking about it. Okay. Thinking about the community partners here, if you are working with somebody, if you are not yourself a university student, but you're working with someone from the university on some kind of a project, well, what are you getting out of it? What is your community getting out of this? If there is a positive answer to that, then you know what you can continue to be doing during COVID. And it doesn't depend on having the academic present. If you don't know the answer to that, maybe you and your academic partner should be talking more and making what's going on more of a partnership and less of a colonial extraction operation. Okay. I'm sorry, but at this point, I am out of words. So perhaps we can move to discussion.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. I think now we can move on to discussions. Professor Scott has very nicely explained the problems and solutions to the crisis which we have been facing presently. It's very important for the young scholars and for the scholars who are facing troubles for the field work and other kind of researches. So I'm very glad to hear that sir has mentioned that if you wish to do quality descriptive linguistics, without field work, it is incomplete. So I hope our participants will be asking questions. So if you wish to ask questions, you turn on your audio and you can put on your questions. But before beginning, before taking your questions, let me ask Professor Scott a question, sir.
Yes.
Since we have come across this challenge presently that we cannot go to the field, we can go to the communities. As you have mentioned, that field linguistics is very important. Field work is very important to do a quality research for descriptive linguistics. So does it mean that will that affect our quality of research during this pandemic? Since we have not been able to do or continue our field works, will that will the quality of our research kind of decrease?
Well, what is it that you don't have available now because you can't go to the field?
Yeah.
When you say, will the quality of our research become less? Well, what I have just been talking about is the idea that you should have partners in the community who you have trained enough that they can produce quality recordings, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If that is the situation, then there is no need for the quality of your research to suffer under COVID. All right. If the people who you work with in the community can gather data that is of research quality, right? In the modern world, that means it's on your desk in 5 minutes. So, right, and then you can communicate back to your collaborators what other kinds of data you might need. It's not necessary that there be any loss of quality here. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you for your answer. Now, may I request our other participants to ask questions? If somebody has a question, you just turn on your microphone and you can start asking.
It seems everybody is.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, somebody
Hello.
speaking. Yes,
hello,
continue.
sir. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Sir, this is a question for the Anil Boro, sir. Professor
Anil Boro, sir. So Anil Boro, sir,
Yes,
please
yes, for
turn on. Anil Boro, sir, please turn on your audio and video.
Yeah. I'm here.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
You can.
told me something about this computer-assisted telephonic interview regarding
Yeah.
the virtual work. So
Yeah.
can you little bit say about what are the little bit elaborate about get
Actually, yeah. It's a very mechanized kind of thing. We are not acquainted. We don't have any experience of this because these things are already there, but these have come to the forefront because of this pandemic situation. But in order to apply this kind of technique, we have to train our field workers. We have to train our field workers how to use this kind of device. It is basically it is a telephone, but it is assisted by the computer-generated device. Suppose you give some response, you give some a response to some company call, then they automatically the computer-generated replies come, and then the next you have to do something like this. It sort of goes on like this, and your collaborator in the field, your assistant or collaborator or informant. Nowadays we call it collaborators. Our respondent in the field should be trained enough to give the appropriate kind of answer for this kind of computerized kind of telephone reply. This is computer assistant telephonic.
Okay,
there are other ways also. We can have recourse to these social media devices, Facebook and other devices, these blogs. But these are completely new things to us. None of us have used this. Yeah, but we should learn this. We should learn this thing. There are lots of training for this in the e-resources. You can go for this in the websites. You can learn more about these new techniques. But the most important thing is, as Scott said, the most important thing is the collaborator in the field should be trained enough to do the proper kind of recording in the field. Because I can go there. My friend and collaborator in the field will be doing everything for me, but he must be in a position to use the device, use the recording machine. That is the most important thing, because I will not be in a position to go there because of this social distancing norm. Is it?
Okay, sir.
Is it okay?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else? Anybody else out there? Okay, so I have a question from Monali Longmailai. Can I read out that question? I hope it is a common question to all the presenters, and hopefully all of you will try to answer this question. Please turn off your audio. Okay. Okay. So let me read out Monali's question. She asked, my question to all the speakers, how possible will be the short-term course in linguistics for community members during the COVID-19? I repeat, how possible will be the short-term course in linguistics for community members during the COVID-19 for documenting the language and putting into an archive or an Excel sheet for random word list? For instance, the speech members will also need to understand how to record oneself, how to transcribe and make it accessible, how to train the community members field work. This is perhaps one of the greatest challenges in lingua cultural documentation. So I hope Professor Scott and Christina will also like to answer this question. May I request Scott to answer this question first?
Well, are we talking about initiating a new project here? I mean, here's the thing. If you have a project underway, I would expect that you already have some local community members who are able to transcribe. All right, that should be one of the very first things that you do as you work out the phonemic system of the language. You need to be teaching what you are discovering to the people that you're working with, so that then they can do transcription according to your system. If the question is, if I wanted to set up a class right now to try and teach a bunch of people who I've never met how to do language transcription of their own language, it would have all of the same challenges doing it remotely that it would have doing it locally, plus all of the other challenges that everybody is running into in these last few months trying to do their teaching remotely. Just off the top of my head, I can't come up with particular examples of what's going to be more difficult about doing it remotely, but we all know that it will be more difficult. But I'm not sure that I'm actually addressing the question here.
I think it makes sense, sir. Thank you. Yeah. May I invite Christina also to answer Monali's question?
Sure. And can you hear me, by the way?
Yes, yes, yes. Christina, go ahead.
And I did write something in the chat area. So, of course, my research is a little bit different because I'm not teaching people how to actually do like linguistic transcription or recording or like that. I am more working with community members on developing archives, but I've been teaching online since 2006, and I think you can really do a lot with teaching people online. And so, in fact, next week I'm about to do, so I'm working with this community in Canada. It's one of the kokrajhar communities, and they're developing an archive, and I'm like a consultant to them. And I was originally supposed to fly there and spend some time with them teaching so there's like local researchers, like students that were training to be researchers. And that was going to be face-to-face, but now I'm going to do the training online using Zoom or whatever. But I feel confident that it will work out fine. And so we've been having meetings, every few weeks for a long time by Zoom. And so I feel like it is possible to do a lot of teaching by Zoom. Obviously, it's more cumbersome. It's still possible.
All right, Christina. Yes, it is possible, but if we talk about teaching the community members, it is not that easy even with the Zoom, because there are so many places in the remote villages where we cannot have even electricity or the internet connection. So this is again another challenge. Yeah. So we don't know if we cannot go to the field, and if we cannot have our internet connection and all, even this system is a failure. This solution is also kind of challenging, right? So we need to think about it.
I have a question.
All right.
Just following Beyonda's question.
Yeah.
To Scott, sir.
Okay.
Sir, we were never prepared for this kind of situation, right? So neither. Hello?
Excuse me, can you tell me your name?
Sulochana.
Sulochana. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so we were never prepared for this kind of situation, and neither all of us are so much equipped technically, right? Especially, I must say, northeastern. Northeastern. This one, scholars or students. So, and all of us may not have such reliable collaborator from the community also. So what do you suggest to a researcher, especially someone who has recently started his or her fieldwork?
Okay, Scott, this question is to you.
Okay. Well, that's a real problem. And it's the one I kind of avoided talking about, although I believe both the other speakers addressed it more. If your situation is that now you're at the point in your academic career where you're supposed to go out and do field work for your dissertation or whatever, and you don't have anything started, I'm not sure I have any helpful suggestions about how to start a project remotely. I mean, obviously the first thing you always have to do is go to the community and meet some people and try and promote some interest in the project. I don't know how I would do that remotely. Was that your question?
Yes, sir.
You have a specific community in mind that you want to work with?
Yes, sir. I have. There's a community in Tripura.
Yeah.
Kokrajhar language, sir. So
okay.
I thought of starting some field work there, but I couldn't. I'm stuck there. So I don't know how to begin and what should I do in the meantime. Of course, I'm and all, but my work is stuck. So I don't know when I can resume it.
You might go way back, a century back to the age of Boaz, where the approach to fieldwork was the very first thing you do is you collect a text. You get someone to tell you a story and you write it down and you analyze it, and then you go back and write. That is unlike the way that we approach things now, where we start with a word level and then figure out the grammar of sentences and build up to texts. You could, in fact, try this. Certainly for one of the languages up there, the phonology is likely to be familiar enough that you can at least get started. So have somebody tell you a short story. You take it and sit down and try and write it all down. And then that gives you something that you can work with your consultant on remotely as you try and pursue the analysis of particular words and so on. I think that's probably what I would do.
Okay, sir. Then, sir, that will be only possible through telephonic conversation, since it's not possible to go to field now again.
No, but yes, it is. It can only be done remotely, but your consultant can take the phone and go and say, Grandma, tell me a story on the phone, and then they can send you the file.
So, sir, we have to just carry it on without any audio or video recording.
Well, wouldn't that be an audio recording? I mean, it's not going to be very good quality. You can't do good instrumental phonetic analysis of that. But even if you just have a file that you can now play on your laptop, you can, by trying to write that down, you can come to a beginning of, a first pass at a phonemic inventory. And then, can your consultant Skype at all? I mean, can you, And then you can take the analysis you've got and connect remotely with your consultant and try and work through it and see if they, right, so you say, well, so I've written this word down this way and I would pronounce that this way. What do you think? It's going to be much more laborious than doing it in person, but you can do all of the same things that you would do in person.
All right. Sulochana, so do you have more questions or it's okay? Are you happy? All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sulochana, for a wonderful question. So we can take a last question. If somebody has, if anybody has a question, please turn on your audio.
Bihung,
Yes.
some Alexander Brahma, he has asked some question. It's in the chat box.
Can you read it out, ma'am? Can you read it out, ma'am? If you
Yeah, he has written, this is not that relevant to this webinar.
okay.
Last year in the Rajya Sabha of the Parliament of India,
Yeah.
one of the members raised an idea about one nation, one script. So what is your comment and recommendations on this? He wants to know from all the speakers. One script.
Sir, could you understand the question?
Yeah. Well, I would first say, in a certain sense, since I'm not an Indian national, it's not entirely my problem, but that sounds to me like a really bad idea. Various languages in India now, many languages in India now have their own scripts, which they are using. I would be really kind of frightened about the reaction to the idea of trying to force everybody to use a single script. I'm not sure I see the point either.
So you don't support that idea, sir, right?
I don't support that idea at all. I don't support any kind of linguistic uniformitarian idea.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Ma'am, is it okay?
Yeah, this is upon here. I would also like to add something, although I'm not from the linguistic background, but what I feel that one nation, one script is not a good idea, as Professor Scott has said, because India, if you take this is a case of legal progress in the parliamentary, in this case, India is a land of diversity. And all the states, all the places, all the small villages they have their own dialect, own language. And because of all this culmination of all these dialect, language, dresses, we are known as diverse. And that makes what is India. So I don't think the concept of one script is not a good thing. So we are good when we are all diverse, but unity is there.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your idea, your views on that. Thank you so much. So I think we can stop the conversation, discussion session at this moment. We have come towards the end of the webinar. Somebody's turning on. Yeah. So, ma'am, this is now your turn for the word of thanks.
My honor, dear.
So you can take 10 minutes to say whatever you want to say on this webinar and on the speakers. Ma'am, please go ahead.
First of all, like a very good morning to Professor Christina and Professor Scott, and for the others, very wonderful evening. And since it's quite late and most of you have come from work also, and I'm very thankful to all the participants who has been stuck on this even though it is late now and almost dinner time for most of the Indians out here. And so very first of all, I would like to thank Professor Christina for delivering her lovely insight on community-based archiving for the indigenous community, and moreover, she has shared her experience on about a virtual collaboration with the Boros and the Dimatas. And moreover, she has shared her experience about her last visit to India, And we welcome you, ma'am, when the pandemic situations are over, when the international flights are flying. You will come here, and whatever virtual collaboration is indeed, that is working these days. And we know in future also these things are going to go deeper. But then also field work is fun, as Professor Scott has said. So we would like you to come to Boroland, and with you, with a collaboration with CIT, we'd like to have a much stronger linguistic development. Ma'am. Thank you so much for your lovely insight. And I hope all our participants have got lot of knowledge and understanding from Madam. Coming to Professor Scott, sir, you are very old friend of ours, and you have come to CIT, Bodoland, Assam, and you have traveled very widely in the Northeast, and very helpful to you for giving us all your insights. Especially, we have heard you a lot during our seminars, our conferences in our campus also, and you are really wonderful, sir, and your work really inspires us. And especially today when you spoke about the community-based collaboration approach, the community-based language development research, and about the local collaboration where the local team will gather their insights from the whatever we want and will send it to you. You staying miles back at home, develop those, interpret those, and put them in your language over there, sir. So we are very grateful to you, and we would like to hear more about you, about your work when the pandemic situations are over. And lastly, Professor Anil Boro, our very own Anil Boro, sir. Thank you, sir, for your deliberation on the challenges of the field work. And mostly what I like that is that, sir, yes, our folklore, that our culture. And today in India, especially when we talk about our Northeast, where is the land a lot of culture, colorful view celebrations, and maybe the puja is also coming. We won't be able to celebrate all those things. So along with that, lot of economic setbacks will take place, especially the dancers, the bihu dancers, the dhag, dhol, and a lot of things, and all those things which is together, which is developing our culture. So with them, we should help them out at the most, as we have said, and that is a very good idea from our part. So, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
And now, so
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, and from the family of CIT and from the organizing team, I would like to thank all the participants to be present, and Bihu, thank you so much, and the others who are along with you, our technical staff, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful speech, wonderful vote of thanks. You have very thoroughly listened to the talk that I can understand from your feedback, and it's very inspiring. And first of all, I must be thankful to our director, sir, Professor Devkumar Chakraborty, and Registrar Madam, Ms. Chaitali Brahma, to inspire us to organize this webinar, because we know challenges are there. This pandemic has really, created lots of challenges. So, as Professor Scott has mentioned, that we should take this as an opportunity, not as a challenge. So we have started the idea, the innovation to organize such kind of virtual events, and we have really enjoyed it. We have seen lots of positive responses from the participants. It's very exciting. It's very wonderful. So I'm very much thankful to all the participants. And I'm very sorry that we could not admit so many participants who were trying to join this webinar on Google Meet. But that is why we have streamed the live video on YouTube too. And if some of you have missed that those sessions, you can go to the link which we have provided on YouTube. These are archived on YouTube. So we are very sorry, but thank you so much for your overwhelming responses. We have received about 700 participants who have registered for this webinar. And all the participants who have registered will be provided e-certificates. So you can stay in touch with me or in my email or Telegram groups which we have created. Thank you, Dr. Anil Boro, sir, for your wonderful presentations, your identifying the problems during this COVID crisis and the solutions which you have uh, shown to us for the scholars. Thank you, sir, for giving your time, and hopefully we'll be seeing you again in near future. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Christina, for your wonderful presentation and sharing your experience which from your field work in India in your last visit. And we are staying in touch with Professor Christina, the community members from Boro and community members from Dimasa. We are staying in touch in WhatsApp, and the students, teachers, and we from here at CIT, Assam University, Guwahati University, we are staying in touch with University of North Texas, and we are doing a wonderful collaborative archiving research. It's going on. Thank you, Christina, and hopefully we can listen to you in near future too. And finally, I'm very thankful to Professor Scott. As we know, Professor Scott is our guardian, and we love to keep listening to him. We want to keep meeting to him. And we have so many young scholars. I know they have come here to listen to you. So whatever points you have mentioned today are all very important and special to all the scholars, all the listeners over here. And hopefully on the points which you have mentioned, there will be again discussions later on Facebook or maybe on other media, maybe on email, etc. So thank you, sir, for your valuable speeches, and hopefully we can think about some more opportunities in future to listen to you, and your collaboration with the community members in Northeast India and in other parts of the world. Hope it will continue, and this COVID cannot stop us. We have started with this webinar and will be continuing in future too. So thank you, dear participants, for your overwhelming responses. Thank you so much. And sorry for all the inconveniences which we have.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. No matter. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Thanks
bye,
for inviting us.
everyone. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. It has been a wonderful time spending with you people.
Thank you, Bihum.
Thank you. And I must thank my organizing team. I forgot to mention my fellow convener, Mr. Sanjeev Narzari, my colleague, who is from computer science and engineering. He has been the technical advisor of this webinar, and it has been successful convener because of Mr. Sanjeev Narzari. And I would like to thank JDH Bosumachari, my colleague, who has been constantly staying in touch with me. Then I have my colleague, Mr. Pranab Kumar Singh, who has been constantly helping me from his room. Then I have my other colleagues, Dr. Gunajit Sharma, and then Kaushik Barman, Dr. Kaushik Barman, Dr. Gunajit Sharma. Then I'm thankful to our advisors of the organizing committee, our head of the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences Department, Dr. Tanushree Nayak, Madam. Thank you. And I would like to thank our colleague, one of the advisors of this webinar, Professor Pradeep Brahmachari sir, for your cooperation. So thank you, and thank you, Mr. Bipin, who has been a very active technical assistant of this webinar. And thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So that's all. Good night. Bye.
Good night.
Good night, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. There, madam. Thank you. Say. Jabat jabat kazan bye.